Mic is working on, yes, thank you. Thank you, madam. Like I have said, my name is Albert Richard, working with the Universal Communication Service Success Fund. This is the government entity with its own board, so it can sue and be sued. The main objective for UCSAF is to connect unconnected, is to extend communication service in rural and urban underserved area. And since its establishment, it has done an exemplary job to connect unconnected. Maybe people have been talking since in the morning about UCSAF. Where do we get funds? First, we get subvention from the government, but also we get subvention from the regulator, TCRA, as well as the service levy from the regulator. 90%, 95% of the service of the revenue is coming as the service levy from the sector players. Whoever is licensed by the regulator is contributing to the success of the fund, but also from the development partners of the like of the World Bank, and as well as investment in other issues. Now, when the fund started in 2006, where the law created that there will be establishment of UCSAF, only 45% of the public were connected, of the population. But as of today, if you do calculation for the population coverage, and if you are not sure, if you are not careful to proper tune your tool, it indicates that 98% of the population is covered. Now, sometimes when you meet with people, we are a bit careful regarding this metric because someone will complain. You are saying 98% of the population is covered, at least with 2G. But at my village, I cannot get my network of privilege. But what happens is that the government, we merge all the coverage, let's say from the 3 operators or 5 operators in that particular area, and after merging the prediction coverage maps, we calculate to what percentage the population is covered. So it might happen that when you are driving from Dar es Salaam all the way to Arusha, you might reach a certain town where Vodacom is not available, but at least TTCL is available, or Airtel is not available, but at least Halotel is available, as well as Honora. For the government, at least we ensure that at least there's a minimum of 1 network operator or service provider to count that there's a communication service. Now, some of other key metrics which are important, as we have said, like the geographical coverage. It is estimated that in Tanzania, more than 70% of the land is covered by communication service, be 2G, at least a minimum of 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. I think, as we may understand, that 2G service is there for some times, at least not for this year. We cannot close it because over 90% of the traffic is passing through 2G devices. So if you remove the 2G layer, maybe we might leave a huge number of our people unconnected. Now, what the fund has done, UCSAF has implemented a number of projects. As I've said, since its establishment, we have entered into contract with mobile operators to connect around 1,974 wards with mobile communication, where we expect that over 2,100 sites will be constructed. And this task is not done alone by UCSAF. We cooperate with mobile service providers of the like of Vodacom, TTCL, Honora, Airtel, and Tigo. Okay, I've said Tigo. All the operators. Now, in doing so, we make sure that all people are connected. The recent project which we have been implementing is the so-called Digital Tanzania project, whereby 758 towers are going to be constructed, and upon its completion, 8.5 million Tanzanians will be connected. The government is using the subsidy around 126 billion shillings to make sure that this project is completed. Everyone is on the pressure, the mobile operators, the infrastructure companies, to make sure that this project is completed before May 2025. Because otherwise, once we close that period, then we'll be in huge troubles. there was an aspect how the country is supporting its future citizen, like the youth, to prepare for digital era. In Tanzania, various innovations have been done, or various aspects have been taken. We have this project called HEAT, the Higher Education for Economic Transformation Project. It's a 5-year project funded by World Bank to improve the learning environment, whereby curriculum are being revised to ensure that we prepare our future young one for digital era. But apart from that, as per UCSAF, we have been implementing the project called School Connectivity, whereby we prepare a list of schools with power connection. We provide ICT equipment like computers. It could be a small number, maybe 5 to 10 computers with one printer and a projector, because we make sure that even with that small number of computers, a teacher should be able to teach a class maybe of 40 students using the projector. With a given number of schools in Tanzania, still we have a higher way to go, a long way to go, because we have like 4,000 schools, secondary schools, and over 20,000 primary schools. So using UCSAF funds alone, maybe it won't work. That's where we need now collaboration with the other aspects, with other players. Yesterday, our friend from HTT were saying that they have a program whereby they put young youth on interns so that they can be ready for the employment. That also is among the support we get. My friend from UCC was saying about the issue of affordability. I think there is policymakers and the regulator to reduce or to make sure that the services are affordable. There are a number of issues which need to be done. The first one is that the regulator needs to make sure that there is a level playing field so that a competition can be available among the sector players. With the competition, it's easier to have new innovation, and then the price will always go down. But when that fails, we need also the government to subsidize. That's when, like UCSAF have been doing, we have been subsidizing access to communication service in rural and urban underserved area. And not only access to communication service, but also we have the project called device financing. I'm sure my friend from Halotel also yesterday talked about device financing. It's a project we haven't implemented, but we are in discussion with various players, including the MNOs, to make sure that we implement that project. So through device financing, it means citizen will be able to access funds, which will be able to give them device like mobile phones, depending on your credits. So it means, let's say if I walk to a Vodacom shop, they will be able to calculate how much I'm credit worth, depending on my usage on the internet. Let's say they might say, I can get a phone worth of 200 shillings. And then through that, I'll be able to take that mobile phone, and I'll be paying maybe on monthly basis until after 12 months, then that phone will remain to me. However, there are some challenges regarding those projects, device financing. We haven't implemented, however, we foresee some challenges which we need to work together to address them. What if the non-performing loans exceed 5%? Then maybe that's where the regulator or the Universal Service Fund need to come into place to make sure that they can offset that 4.5 non-performing loans so that the lender, which are the bank and the operators, can still progress well in lending those devices. Another issue to make sure that we have affordable access is to make sure that the government continue investing on infrastructure. In Tanzania, the government has done an exemplary job in investing on infrastructure. Yesterday, the Leo told us like on national ICT backbone, the government has already reached over 18,000 kilometers of fiber, which means by doing so, it's easier now for the citizen to connect to that fiber for other business. The data centers have been implemented okay, we have few data centers, but we need to have more data centers. Now that can be done through either PPP or even using private sectors, but the government and the private sector need to invest more on infrastructure to reduce those barriers. And the last one, for me, I think the government need to reduce the so-called regulatory barriers. Last year, the government removed the fee, the levy on fiber. Initially, we used to charge $1,000, I think, per each kilometer of fiber. Now that was removed, that was reduced to 100 shillings, which $100, which I think for ISPs is a key factor for their success. Madam is, okay, I can proceed. Thank you. Maybe to finalize my keynote, the advice for the policymaker and the regulator. The first, as I've said, we need to prioritize investment on infrastructure because they are capital intensive. On the citizen level, maybe it will be difficult for them to implement. But if that burden is taken by the government, then it means we'll have infrastructure throughout the places. But while we, while we consider implementing the infrastructure, we should not also forget about the human capital. So the government also should continue investing on human capital, training our young people, training the workforce, so that at least now we'll prepare our workforce for the future. The last one is to collaborate. Collaborate means working with either private sector or even other multinational companies, because they are the one who might bring some changes if we are working together. If we don't collaborate, we work alone, then most likely we won't reach far. As people said, if you go alone, you won't reach far. So collaboration with private sector is key, and as the fund we have been doing, we have been collaborating with the private sector since its inception. UCSAF is implementing rural project through the so-called PPP. So this is a good example of private-public partnership, whereby the fund provides subsidy, and then operators also, they add their capitals to implement these projects. What the government need is the service provided to the public, and then the public can pay tax for the government to proceed. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Albert. A big round of applause for Albert Richard, Head of Operations at the UCSAF. Thank you so much once again, Albert. And let me thank George Tembo, Executive Director of the Uganda Communications Commission, for his remark. With these two speakers, we come to the end of the final panel of the 2024 Summit. And I must thank you all for being such a responsive and attentive audience. We'll all get rewarded with a nice big group photo on the stage at the end of the whole conference, but we have one more session to go through now, which is the final session of the closing remark. And I'm going to invite my friend Innocent to please come over and guide us through the rest of the session. Thank you all for your patience. We're going to get started in just a few seconds, and then we wrap up for C2C 2024 in Arusha.